Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for a deeper look at episode 21 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, Void Trap. But first, a rapid run-through. Let's kick off the counter. It's morphin' time. Okay, so we open on where we left off last time.
Void Knight stolen Dr. Akana's morphin grid tech from Dino Henge.
In the base, the Rangers recall the missing capacitor and plan to sabotage it to lay a trap for Void Knight.
A void trap, if you will.
They convince Ollie to loop his mom in on the plan just as Void Knight has Regal resurrect Boom Tower.
Again?
And sends all 4 minions to retrieve Dr. Akana in the part while he checks on his lost love.
Santora.
The Rangers introduce Dr. Akana to the base.
And Solon.
And she's down for tricking the tech thief, so the Rangers keep an eye on her as she wanders the plaza and is attacked by the Sporks and Void Knight, who nabs her purse and leaves the others to capture her.
Sleepy Cuffs time.
Regal sends her to a dark dimension with Slither and Mucus before hopping in as well, and Zato summons new T-Rex Cosmic Megazord formation to make a gateway to chase after them while the others stay behind to fight Boom Tower and the Henchmen until they combine all their Fury attacks together for immediately to finish them off with the Dino Fury Force Strike from her saber.
Too bigger than average explosion.
The Rangers get knocked back, and Void Knight and a pair of henchmen teleport in with Sleepy Cuffs to capture everyone but Ollie.
Again?
While Zato finishes off now giant-sized Regal with the Cosmic Gateway Strike, rescuing Dr. Akana from the dark dimension.
But definitely not Slither and Mucus.
Before rejoining Ollie at Dino Henge, where they spy Void Knight setting up the tech with the Rangers hooked up to Santora's pod, realize the Rangers won't survive the influx of grid energy and come up with a plan to distract Void Knight so that they can break the circuit.
Now Zato has Sleepy Cuffs too.
So after Zato gets hooked up to the machine, Ollie's mom makes a better distraction and Ollie zooms in with the Sprint Dino Key to slice off the heads of the Dino Henge statues,
Cutting their link to the morphin grid.
So the machine's shut down, but now all the Rangers demorph.
Hi, Mom.
Kicking off an unmorphed sword fight against Void Knight and the Henchmen until Izzy attacks Santora's pod to draw Voidy's attention and Ion blasts the capacitor to self-destruct the machine and leave a crater where the two lovers were.
Sure we'll never see them again.
Dr. Akana reconnects with Solon as the Rangers discuss what to do without their powers, but then the Green Morphin Master appears.
Here's your powers back, can't answer any questions, bye!
So the Rangers morph to answer a new call from the hotline while we get one last shot of Santora in Area 62 next to Void Knight's cracked helmet.
Roll credits.
And that's the end of the episode. Now, let's take a deeper look. We have finally reached the end of the season, with only the holiday special left to round out the year. So how does Void Trap measure up to previous first season finales? Well, that's an interesting question. Ever since Power Rangers premiered on Nickelodeon after its brief one-year hiatus, installments of the franchise have been broken down into 2 seasons each, often adapting approximately 50-episode Sentai series into a pair of 20-plus episode chunks. Except for Megaforce and Super Megaforce, which were each a different full Sentai series, adapted into only about 20 episodes, but we're not getting into that here. If you want my thoughts on those seasons, just go watch Database Rangers Power Reviews. It's fun, I promise. It's my main series, it's got a whole storyline going, we're currently analyzing classic episodes, it's a good time overall, you should check it out. But all self-promotion aside, there's been a number of different approaches for how to handle these first season finales, because they're generally adapting episodes that did not function as finales for their source material, and therefore the sense of stakes is often far more reliant upon the American storyline. Beast Morphers got lucky because the middle of Go Busters had something of a fake-out finale that worked well for Evox Upgraded, and Ninja Steel chose to use footage from Ninja's finale for Galvanax Rises in the first season, while saving the Ninja's penultimate fight for Super Ninja Steel's actual finale the following season.
Clever strategy, though obviously confusing to explain.
And then we have Megaforce, which I already alluded to, and before that, Samurai, which just kind of stopped with the fake-out duel between Jaden and Decker before picking right back up with finalizing the introduction of Super Samurai mode the following season. But probably the first season finale that is most comparable to Dino Fury would ironically be the first season finale of Dino Charge, One More Energem, which also featured the main villain nearly accomplishing his goal of accumulating the power he'd sought all season, before ultimately being thwarted and seemingly destroyed in an explosion. However, much like with Dino Charge, there's not really any assumption that our main villain is actually gone for good, as not only did we not see them destroyed directly, but it's also extremely unlikely that the production team is actually done with that costume, as Sledge was completely original, and here none of the Sentai footage with Void Knight has actually appeared yet.
I mean, except for like one finisher.
Also, both episodes featured the introduction of a new Megazord formation to defeat a non-standard monster, which is just kind of a neat parallel. This is also one of those cases where we're not looking at a full-on fake-out finale like Ninja Steel or Beast Morphers, where they act like everything is resolved except for a little tiny tease at the end, instead falling somewhere in between the retired Rangers with unresolved arcs in Dino Charge and the fully unresolved conflicts of Samurai. In that regard, this is the first time we've really had a the adventure continues kind of ending, where all major villains appear to be dealt with, but the team is still actively combating an ongoing threat, interestingly paralleling the as-of-now unadapted Sentai series Lupin Ranger vs. Pad Ranger.
But I'm already getting ahead of myself talking about the note the episode ends on before talking about the episode itself.
Because there's plenty to unpack in this episode. Perhaps the most interesting point is just how many plot beats it manages to hit without really feeling like a finale for much of the episode. We've got the defeat of multiple recurring villains, the Rangers losing their powers, a civilian ally discovering their true identities, and a big unmorphed showdown with the main villain, which are all trademarks of an epic finale. However, the meat of the plot is rooted in pretty standard episodic tropes, like the Rangers failing in an attempt to outwit the villains, a friendly civilian being captured, and the Rangers themselves being kidnapped with sleepy cuffs, something that Ollie even makes a point of saying has already happened before.
Speaking of which, I was not expecting sleepy cuffs to act as a major plot point in multiple episodes.
Maybe we could have had some sort of origin for the sleepy cuffs if they were going to be this important. This once again brings us back to the issue of Regal, who continues to act as a major plot driver with no real explanation, having originally been introduced back in Old Foes alongside the sleepy cuffs, which is nice. It's nice to set up your characters and plot points in advance, but throwing things into the plot early doesn't mean that you're not still just throwing them into the plot. Here we add on to Regal's story-breaking power of resurrection with the brand new ability to open portals to a dark dimension, which, again, comes out of nowhere and just seems like a random excuse to use Sentai footage with no actual explanation as to what's going on.
Seriously, everything surrounding that sequence is just baffling.
It felt like the characters understood why things were happening, but I very much did not. Like, was Regal supposed to send Dr. Akana to the dark dimension? Was he just supposed to put sleepy cuffs on her and then rebelled? Is there a reason that Boom Tower got left behind? Was it according to Void Knight's plan? Or did Regal just decide to spare Boom Tower from the fate of Mucus and Slither because he liked Boom Tower better despite the attitude that he had given him just a moment earlier at the beginning of the episode? Then we have Zato summoning the T-Rex Cosmic Megazord to chase after 4 non-giant individuals, even though we had just established in the previous episode that Ion was able to summon cosmic gateways without even needing to morph. So, did he know that Regal was going to grow giant off-screen, or did he just feel like piloting a giant robot in that moment?
I mean, I can't exactly blame him, but randomly growing giant just adds another new ability to Regal's repertoire with no explanation.
Zato also didn't even try asking where Dr. Akana was before going in with a giant robot gun blazing. I mean, it is possible that this was all Void Knight's plan, drawing Zato away, using Regal, setting up Boom Tower with more volatile explosives to disable the Rangers, and removing Slither and Mucus from the equation due to his choice to stop focusing on the Sporix. But outside of him teleporting in with the sleepy cuffs after Boomy went boom boom, which just as easily may have been him grasping an opportunity, there's no actual indication of clear intention here. Stuff just kind of happens, and we don't really know why, and it's left very unclear if the characters have any better idea than we do, as both our Rangers and our villains are regularly flailing around with plans depending not on who is more clever, but on who just so happens to be failing worse at that particular moment.
Honestly, I cannot tell you how easy it should have been for the Rangers to defeat Void Knight this episode.
Yet they somehow made things easier for him the more they tried. First, Zato's attack with the Dino Dagger just lands him in a pair of sleepy cuffs, and Ollie just fails to take advantage of the distractions. Then they choose to waste time changing the plan from breaking the circuit to destroying the Dino Henge statues, while Void Knight is clearly still distracted with hooking Zato to the machine. And then Ollie fails to take advantage of the second distraction that his mom creates, waiting until she uses the Dino Dagger herself to create a third distraction that draws Void Knight over to the machine, and it's only then that he finally uses the sprint key to destroy the Dino Henge statues and free his teammates.
But if you were going to use the super speed Dino key anyway, why did you need so many distractions? Just run!
And considering how many slashes it took to destroy the statues, he could have just still removed the capacitor instead in a fraction of that time. So just to be clear, In the course of trying to execute their plan, they gave Void Knight an extra link to the Morphin Grid, got Dr. Akana punched across the forest, and then destroyed the source of their powers instead of just taking out the thing that they had already planned to destroy from the beginning. Now, from a structural standpoint, I get it. You need to have the Rangers fail in their initial attempts to keep ramping up the stakes, and the destruction of the statues is necessary to justify the big unmorphed battle, the reveal of the Ranger identities, and the big return of the Green Morphin Master in the final moments.
Which were all cool. I loved all those things.
I just wish that how we got there made more sense as a logical progression. Note, that doesn't mean that characters always have to behave logically. In real life, people make bad decisions all the time, especially when emotions are running high, which was particularly true for both Ollie and Void Knight throughout this entire sequence. But in that regard, there are still logical reasons for illogical actions, which is different than having characters making deliberate choices that have no in-universe reason beyond getting them to wherever the writers need them to be, and then treating those choices as still somehow being perfectly logical.
And this is all extra frustrating because the writers did succeed in getting me emotionally invested in this conflict.
I actually wanted to see Void Knight succeed. Throughout the entire sequence, I was on the edge of my seat, not because I was afraid the Rangers might lose, but because I was afraid that they might actually succeed in their repeated attempts to destroy a life support system for someone who, as far as we know, has done absolutely nothing wrong up to this point. Now, context suggests that whatever the main villain is attempting to accomplish is inherently bad, so there's a good chance that Centaur will ultimately end up being a worse threat than Void Knight. But every time they slash another part of that life support system, it is an absolute gut punch, because you know that every single thing that he has done up until this point has been towards the purpose of saving her life.
And are you really going to tell me that at no point did any of them notice that there was a floating woman inside of this machine?
I mean, I get that she was facing away from them, but there was a lot of moving around and Void Knight talking lovingly to the machine that we're riding a fine line here between them just not knowing and them just not caring so long as they were hurting Void Knight. So yeah, I feel really torn about this finale because the emotional stakes are high and do feel genuinely earned, and the story does make use of a lot of elements that have been well established across the course of the season. But at the same time, this episode also highlights some of the biggest weaknesses of the season. Mistaking early introduction for proper setup, forcing characters to make whatever choices best fit the plot instead of vice versa, and teasing resolution to plot lines without actually delivering on that resolution. Or at least not yet. So, I guess this feels a lot less like completing our story for Season 1, and a lot more like completing our setup for Season 2. And I have to admit, with all the pieces now in place, I'm still looking forward to seeing how that game plays out. So make sure to join me next time for a deeper look at episode 22 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, the holiday special, Secret Santa. And if you would like to share this week's rapid run-through, you can find it as a standalone clip over at Morphin Legacy's YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe to us both, ring the bell for future notifications, and, until next time, farewell Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.